Hello, this is Diné here, your time management expert, and I just wanted to share a story about my son who had came home from school and they took the kindergartners to the aquarium for their class trip. So, this was his first time going on the big yellow bus where he'd always heard the story wheels on the bus. People go up and down, the doors go open and shut. So he was really excited to be on the big yellow bus. And he got to the aquarium and he saw the yellow and orange fish, Nemo. And he was so excited to see all the different fishes and all the sea creatures. And when he got home, he was just so tired. He just went right to sleep. And when he woke up, he slept for maybe an hour and a half. So he hadn't eaten. When he got up, I said, "Do you want something to eat?" And he just started crying. He just started crying. He was frantic. And he was just acting like he hadn't just taken a nice nap. And I'm just wondering what is wrong with this kid. So he's crying, he's all emotional, and I'm like, "Well, what's the matter?" And he's like, "Well, I want to play with that toy. And I want to play with the toy." I'm like, "Okay, so play with the toy." And he's like, "Yeah, but the toy is just too far, and I don't want to go get it." And he's crying, and I'm just wondering what is the real deal, because he doesn't usually act like this when he gets up from a nap. Usually when he gets up from a nap, he's totally refreshed and happy. And he's relaxed, but he's not upset. He's usually just relaxed. And he's transitioning back into his body, not usually upset. So I tell him, "Go get the toy." And he's like, "Well, I just want you to go get it. You go get it for me." And I'm like, "Well, the toy is not that far. It's right there." So he's really frantic and he's upset. His arms are flaring. He's just beside himself. And so I said, "Well, I'm going to get you something to eat." And he says, "Well, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat." I'm like, "Well, you haven't eaten since you got home." "Yeah, but I don't want to eat." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll just put it together, and when you're ready, then you eat." "Okay, fine. You could get it." So I go to make him something to eat. And while I'm making the food, I still hear him crying. And I figure he's just overwhelmed and overstimulated, and I have no idea what's wrong. But once I get him the food, I put it on the table in front of him. And while I'm putting it down, I kneel down, eye level with him, and I said, "It looks like there's a lot going on inside of your body right now. There's a lot of activity. And it seems like it just needs to settle down a bit. So why don't we just take a deep breath and try and calm things down?" And so he's like, "I don't want to take a deep breath. I don't want to calm down." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm going to take a deep breath. And if you decide you want to, then you could take a deep breath too." So then I take a deep breath. And then I let it out. And I said, "You want to try with me?" "No, I don't want to take a deep breath." And he just starts flaring his arms. And he's like, "I just want to play with the toy. I just want you to get the toy." And so I said, "Well, I'm going to take a deep breath." And I take a deep breath. And then I take a deep breath out. And he's just looking at me. He calms down for a bit. wondering what I'm doing. And I take a deep breath and I say, try it with me. Just take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. And he's still looking at me, wondering, what is this lady doing? But then I continue to do it. And I said, I'm going to try it slower. Let's see how slow I could try it. So I take a deep breath in. And I take a deep breath out. And then I see him starting to calm down. And he looks away. And then I look at him and I see him actually trying to take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. And then he sits down, and after a few breaths, or after pretending to ignore me, looking out the window, I leave him alone because I see that he's calmed down. And I just let him process what I had been telling him. And parts of it, I don't know if he really took in because of what I was telling him, what he was hearing. I think maybe me just doing it had more of an effect on him watching me actually do it. So then he starts to eat, and after he act like nothing had happened. He was just himself again. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe he was just hungry. Maybe he was just really, really hungry because it had been a while since he had eaten. So he goes and he plays with his toys after he's done eating. And about an hour later, he comes over to me and he says, Mommy, when you're on your Zooms with your clients or when you're teaching your meditation group, you should teach them about breathing because it really helped me. And that just melted my heart so much. I'm like, look at this. My little 5-year-old sees the value of just pausing and taking a breath. And it really, really touched my heart because these are the things that I want him to be able to take with him through life. That sometimes we just need to take a pause, take a breath. So I'm referencing my son and mentioning that he's 5-year-old, but even as adults, sometimes we have sensations in our bodies. And we may think that we always understand what the sensation means. And we tend to think that there's something externally that is creating such an emotion when that is not always the case. Neuroscientists are finding that how we view things externally is a result of what came up internally, and not that something externally is creating our emotions. So generally we train ourselves to react a certain way to something that we see or an event or situation, but the reaction is different and even the intensity is different from one person to the next. So it's what's in our programming that determines how we see things. So it starts from the inside. It starts on the inside, and unfortunately we don't always get it right. If we are not aware that our emotions are running the show, then we will take whatever we perceive externally as factual, as real, as the truth, and it will set us to just react instead of really tuning in and remaining curious. So I was reading a book by Lisa Barrett, the neuroscientist. She mentioned that our brains being wired for these sort of delusions or false predictions can create unfortunate situations. One example she gave was a police department doing an analysis between 2007 and 2013 where they were looking at the shootings of unarmed victims. And half of those cases misidentified a non-threatening object or movement. Another example she gave was a study done in 2011 where they were looking at judges, and they noticed that denying parole to prisoners were significantly more likely if the hearing was before lunchtime, because they got this gut feeling, which ultimately appeared as hunger, because immediately after lunchtime, the paroles were granted with their customary frequency, or why interviewers tend to rate applicants more negatively when it is a rainy day, or people reporting more happiness and life satisfaction on sunny days. Or there's another book that I was reading, and it was talking about how police departments and hospitals notice that there's more cases when the moon is full, when there's a full moon. Or why it's suggested that we wait 20 minutes before going for that second plate of food to confirm whether we really are full or not. And I would also imagine that when I walk into a store and the salesperson sees that there's something that I might like, then they encourage me to try it on, because it creates a certain sensation where I might more than likely buy that item. It's the sensation we have as a result or reaction to something external that has an effect on our behavior, and not the external factor itself. So we have to take a pause or experience a breath to go internal and give our brains time to assess or catch up to see what is really true. Past experiences or beliefs has an impact on our predictions and affect our behavior going forward unless it's corrected. Making changes from the inside has an impact on our physical world. It's not our rational conscious mind that's running the show. It's what's in our subconscious programming. So next time we have a reaction about something, take a moment to consider what sensation we are having in the moment and assess its role in our reaction. If it's positive, hold on to the feeling and marinate in it. If it's negative, consider whether there's something within that needs to change. How are you?
Good?
Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.
Mhm.